Chapter 14 of The Rat Race by J. Franklin. "If it's going to be long," she said, "we'd both better have a drink. You always think better if you have a glass in your hand." "Now, what is it you want to know?" I answered, after we were comfortably settled in front of the electric fire. It's just that everything is so queer," Germaine began. "You've changed so that you almost seem like a different person. You even look better, not so flabby, as though you took regular exercise. At least I see a change. And then suddenly I find that you've been carrying on with that Briggs girl, and I can't tell whether you've really changed or are just trying to fool me. She's a nice person, of course, and if you must have another girl, I'd rather have you pick someone, safe and comfortable like her. But you said you hadn't been playing with the office girls. And then there's Ponto. He used to adore you and you swore by him. Now he tries to bite you and you want to get rid of him. And then there's all this talk about where you were during Holy Week and that FBI man, and Myrtle tells me they've been asking a lot of questions about you in Virginia. What have you been doing, dear, that you can't remember when our whole life may depend on it?" "Jimmy," I told her, "I wish to God I knew. You must believe me when I tell you I can't remember things before Easter Monday. That was the 2nd, and today's the 11th, and I can remember everything that's happened since then. Before that, it is all blank and all mixed up in that dream I had." She moved away from me slightly. "You can't tell me that the FBI would be interested in your dreams," she said sharply. "Not in time of war." "They are in this dream," I told her. "You see, I dreamed, if you want to call it that a certain American ship blew up in the North Pacific. The trouble is that the public hasn't been told there is such a ship, like that old Nameless in the Solomons, and that the Navy Department doesn't know what happened to it. I believe that it did blow up. Harcourt believes my story, in the main, but from the FBI angle, they have to check up on whether I'm not part of an Axis spy ring which could have caused the explosion. If I could only remember where I was and what I was doing the week before, I could clear myself." Her face lighted and she relaxed. "Oh, is that all?" she exclaimed. "I know you couldn't have done anything like that. All you've probably been doing is to go off with one of those silly girls of yours to some out-of-the-way place. That ought to be easy to check, even if you registered under a false name. For the first time, you know," she added, "I'm almost glad you've been chasing all those stupid blondes of yours. It will make it easy to establish your alias." "Alibi," I corrected her. "Let me fix you another drink. From now on," I added, "there are going to be no more blondes or redheads. I like Arthurjean Briggs. She's named Arthurjean for her father and mother. It's one word, like Mary Lou or Honeychild. But she's more like a friend than you know. You saw her. But I guess you're right. I must have been chasing around so much, my mind got tangled up in itself and sort of blew a fuse. If I can't get my memory straightened out soon, I'll look up a psychiatrist and see if he can't fix me." "You know, Winnie," Germaine began and then fell silent. "Yes, Jimmy?" She turned towards me and smiled rather wistfully. "You know, I was going to say that you and I, perhaps, well, it's so long since we've been really, close to each other. I wondered—" "You mean that perhaps we ought to patch things up between us?" "Isn't that what a wife's for?" she asked. I mean, when things get difficult, there ought to be one person to whom you can turn." I slipped my arm around her and drew her close to me on the lounge. She lowered her face against my coat and I could feel her shaking. "You're crying," I said. "You mustn't cry." "Oh, Winnie, I've been so alone, so—" I raised her face to mine and kissed her, tasting the wet, salt tears. Her lips were warm and soft against mine. Suddenly she pressed herself against me and responded to my kiss so fiercely that we were both startled. We sprang apart, almost guiltily. "Oh," she exclaimed. "Oh, You haven't kissed me like that. She raised her lips again, and this time we held it. What with one thing and another, I didn't get back to the office until the market closed on Thursday afternoon. I found my two partners in pretty good control of our operations, but frankly mystified as to the cause of the official mugging of Tompkins, Wasson, and Cohn. We had laid out $2.5 million in all, despite the attempt to scare us off. The market had continued steady. Neither Graham nor Phil asked me any direct questions about the events on Wednesday. They talked straight business and kept their curiosity in check. It was close to 4:30 when we finished our general discussion of the operation, so I decided that they were entitled to some kind of explanation in return for their loyalty. See here, boys, I told them. You've both been perfectly swell about this rat race the SEC started. Harry Willimer tried to put the squeeze on me for $500,000 to finance him and a bunch of official bastards in a shady deal. When I turned him down, he threatened to tie us up with a commission investigation. I bluffed him out of it at the time by pretending there was an FBI dictaphone record of our talk, so he laid off the heavy heat and just started needling us a little. Any time now, he'll make the check at the FBI, and when he finds there isn't any record, he'll try to tie us up tighter than a drum. All we can do is wait it out. The market's going to start dropping any day now, and we'll clean up. Oh, Wasson said. Was that it? Willimer's a bad actor. Thanks for telling us, Winnie. Phil and I knew that there must be something screwy when the door flew open and Arthurjean appeared, her face white. God, she said at last. He was such a swell guy. He... Who? What's the It's Roosevelt, she choked. He's dead. It just came in on the ticker. No! He died at Warm Springs. And she hid her face in her hands and left the room sobbing. Phil Cohn stood up, paper white, crossed over, and turned up the radio. Flash, the announcer was saying. Warm Springs, Georgia. President Roosevelt died this afternoon following his collapse from a severe cerebral hemorrhage. More in a moment. Keep tuned to this station. Well, I'll be eternally damned, I said. So he was right. Cohn whirled on me. You knew about this, he stated flatly. When we were talking yesterday morning. You had more than a hunch. You knew he was going to die. Be your age, Phil, I told him. How in hell could I know? Jesus Christ, Wasson growled. This will knock holy hell out of the market. Lucky Trading's closed for the day. They can't open tomorrow. They'll have to shut down all the exchanges. They'll have to close the banks. God, what a mess. Cohn still looked dazed. No dancing in the streets? He asked bitterly. I thought this was going to send values skyrocketing. Wasson swung on him. The hell with that talk, Phil, he snapped. I was just shooting the bull. Roosevelt dead. Jesus H. Christ. You know, he wasn't a bad old buzzard after he got rid of all that New Deal nonsense and set to work winning this war. Cohn had recovered his poise. Sure, he did a swell job winning the war, but now we're going to lose the peace, sure as shooting. Hell! Graham's choice of expletives was strictly rationed. This means that Truman will take over. What sort of guy is he? You got any idea, Winnie? He's not up to Roosevelt, that's sure. I shook my head. I don't know from nothing, I began. Shh! The radio announcer resumed his broadcast. Warm Springs, Georgia. President Franklin Delano Roosevelt passed away at 4:35 this afternoon, Eastern Wartime, following a severe cerebral hemorrhage. The late president had been spending a few days at his Georgia retreat, getting rested after his strenuous trip to the Alta Conference. Earlier this afternoon, he complained of a severe headache and almost immediately became unconscious. He died peacefully a little later. His death came at a moment when American troops in Germany and on Okinawa were driving ahead toward the victory Cohn switched it down again.
He had a headache, he muttered. What do you think we're going to have?
The telephone rang. I picked up the instrument. It was one of those automatic phonograph recordings. The stock exchange will not be open tomorrow by order of the governors. Out of respect for the memory of the late President Roosevelt. That is all. The stock exchange will not be open. The metallic feminine voice went on. I hung up. You're right about one thing, Graham, I said. That was an automatic message to say the exchange will be closed tomorrow. It's probably on the ticker, too. It was. Cone sat down suddenly as though his legs had turned to rubber.
Now it will all start again, he said. Sell out and pack up and clear out.
I crossed the office and put my hand on his shoulder. Cheer up, Phil, I told him. It won't be as bad as that. Graham and I will stick with you. And that's true of Americans generally. Cone shrugged his shoulders hopelessly.
Thanks, Winnie, he remarked. You're a good fellow and a good friend. I've got something to say to you. You won't like it. I got worried yesterday when you started talking about Roosevelt maybe dying, and I tipped the FBI on what you said.
I laughed. If the FBI arrested every man in Wall Street who had ever talked about Roosevelt dying, the jails wouldn't hold them. Don't worry, Phil. In your shoes, I'd have done the same thing. The phone rang again. It was the receptionist. Mr. Harcourt is here to see you, Mr. Tompkins, she informed me. Shall I ask him to wait? Tell him I'll see him in a couple of minutes, I replied. This is it, boys, I told my partners. It's the FBI. Now, the market's going to drop. It will be a bear market in a big way. Dignified as hell, and we're in ahead of the others. You two just carry on. Try to get a line on this guy Truman. Some of our Kansas City correspondents may have the dope. Phil, no hard feelings about this FBI angle. They've been riding me for days on some crazy story Ranty Tolan started about me last week. Wasson looked at me coldly.
If I thought that you had anything to do with this, he began.
Oh, skip it, I begged him. You know me better. I picked up the phone and told the receptionist to send Harcourt in.
Mr. Tompkins, he said, I've been ordered to ask you to come up to the Bureau's headquarters right away.
Am I under arrest? I asked.
Well, Harcourt admitted, I haven't got a warrant, but I think maybe you better come with me.
What's the charge?
My chief will tell you what it's all about, he said. My orders were to bring you in for questioning.
Okay, I agreed. I'll come along quietly. Phil, will you tell Miss Briggs to ring up my wife and say I won't be home tonight and not to worry? I'll be all right. Harcourt came and laid his hand on my arm.
Come along, then, he ordered gruffly.
What about my lawyer? I inquired. Graham, will you phone Merryvale and tell him I've been taken up to the FBI for questioning? Harcourt looked up at me.
Is Meriwether Vale your lawyer? He asked. I wouldn't bother to call him. We've picked him up, too. All your associates, outside of business and, pleasure, are being rounded up. The president's dead, Mr. Tompkins, and you're going to have to do some talking to my chief.
End of chapter 14.